Good day everyone, welcome to ITS 208 and CSE 209. This is Graphics and Visual Computing. My name is Julius, your instructor. Today we're going to have another pre-recorded class. This is in continuation to our discussion about Adobe Photoshop. So by the way, my apologies of the delay. Yesterday, I was already done with the recording yesterday. However, for some reason, the recording is broken. Some of the parts is frozen. So that's why I'll have to repeat it again. So anyway, last meeting we've already discussed about Adobe Photoshop or getting started. Understanding how understanding the Adobe Photoshop workspace, the different palettes, the different tools, when to use them, and how to use them. This time around, we're going to discuss one of the most important thing to learn in Adobe Photoshop, and that's going to be the layers. So we're going to discuss what exactly layers are for, how to use them, and when to use them. So without any further ado, let's get started. And if you're having any questions or clarification, please send it through our Facebook chat group, so we'll be able to address it right away. So be sure to watch this entire video, listen attentively. Right after this, I'll be posting an assessment and assignment that will be later on. So make sure to take note, and then if possible, please install the Adobe Photoshop that I've using the link that I provided to you in our previous lessons. So in learning Adobe Photoshop, there are several ways. There are several things that is very important. So right now, the layers, the pen tool, and the mask, these are three of the most important things to learn in Adobe Photoshop. And we will start with the first one, which is layers. Lesson 4, understanding layers. Understanding layers is very important in making compositions. Doing properly makes editing much easier. Layers let you organize your work into distinct levels that can be edited and viewed as an individual object. Every Photoshop CSC document contains at least one layer. Creating multiple layers lets you easily control how your composition is printed, displayed, and edited. You will use the layers palette often while creating a document, so it's crucial to understand what it does and how to use it. So what exactly is layers, by the way? So from the term suggests layer, okay? So layers, if you're going to compare it with regular projects, regular artworks, let's say if we're going to create we're going to create a scrapbook, diba? So if we're going to add objects or decorations to it, let's say flowers, text, pictures, mostly from cutouts, diba? So for example, if we're going to add flowers to it, we're going to cut out, flowers from either construction papers, color papers, and then paste it on our artboard. Then those cutouts are considered to be as layers, diba? So if we're going to add text to it, words, pictures, those text, those pictures can be compared to the layers. Basically, those are layers if we're using Adobe Photoshop. So every composition using Adobe Photoshop must have layers, and each elements, each objects, each decorations that we're going to add to our composition must be separated with layers. Okay, so that's why it's very important to understand how layers work, and that way it will give us easier management, and it just makes the creation of our composition much easier. Okay, so these are the things, or these are the parts of layers, Adobe Photoshop layers. And I've labeled it, and we're going to get through them one by one. Let's start with the first one, layer visibility, A. So layer visibility, or basically it shows the eye icon, and that eye icon shows that the layer or the selected layer is visible. Click the eye to set the layer visible or hidden. So here it is. So once the eye icon is displayed, that means that layer is visible. So whenever we say the layer is visible, that means you can see whatever it is that is inside that layer, we can see it on the project. So let's open up Adobe Photoshop. All right, let me close that. Let's start over. Let's open up an existing Adobe Photoshop. Let's say this one right here. And this is the layer. So let me move it so we can see it separately. So this is the layers. these are the layers that I have added to create this composition. And you'll notice that and these are the layers basically. Okay? Each row represents one, or basically it represents the objects that I've added to this composition. And let's select the logo, this one right here. This logo right here is saved inside layer 3. Okay, right now it's visible because we can see the eye icon. So if we're going to click on it, it hides the eye icon, and it also hides the object that is inside the layer, which is the logo. And then by clicking on it again, the eye icon appears, and so the object itself, or the layer itself. So basically the eye icon is for layer visibility. Next is layer locking options. This allows you to keep the layer from moving around the canvas. This one right here. So basically there are 4 icons. We have this kind of checkered or plaid icon, and then we have a brush icon, and then we have the arrows icon, and then an actual padlock icon. So each of these lock icons or lock options rather have different purpose. The first one, the transparent pixels, basically the checkered button allows you to lock transparent pixels. The brush icons allow you to lock image pixels, and the visible icons allow you to, or the arrow icon rather, allows you to lock position, and the lock icon allows you to lock all of the options. So most of the time, okay, when do we use locking option in our layers? First is perhaps we are so satisfied, we are already satisfied with the layer, and we don't want anything to be done with it. So we don't want any accidental changes to that layer, so we want to lock it. Okay, most of the time we're going to use the lock all options. So for example, we are already satisfied with the logo and we don't want any accidental changes, so we want to lock it. How are we going to do so? Here we're going to highlight it out, and then select either of these options right here. We're just going to select lock all, and then you'll notice that the lock icon will display at the right part of the layer. That means this this layer can no longer be changed or anything. For example, we will be using the move tool, and if we're going to move it around, it will display could not use the move tool because the layer is locked. However, if we're going to unlock it, you just have to highlight it again and then click on the lock icon, and then this time we are free to move it around because it is no longer locked. Okay. All right. By the way, before we go any further, please allow me to inform you that in this recording, so right below my face will give you the keystroke, or basically whatever it is that I pressed on my keyboard, it will display right here. Right now it says tab because that is the last key that I pressed. If I'm going to say Control Alt S, so it will also display it right here. If I'm going to press A, it will display it right here. So take note of that as we go along, because some of the tools, some of the techniques in Adobe Photoshop can be used using keyboard. These are called keyboard shortcuts. And another thing on the right side right here is a picture of a mouse. All right, so it will allow me to show you which click, or which part of the mouse I click. Maybe it's either the right or left click. Okay, so for example, if I'm going to use the left click, or right click, then the right click will also be highlighted. And if I'm going to use the right click, the left click will also be highlighted. Same thing if I'm going to scroll up, scroll down, or just press the scroll bar or scroll wheel altogether. All right, so you might want to take note of that just in case you're not so sure which press or which click I did. And just in case malimot po ko hatag og unsa akong gi-click, right click ba or left click. Anyway, moving on. Next is we have layer blending mode. It defines how the layer pixel blends with another layers in the image. By choosing a particular blending mode from the drop-down menu, you can create a variety of special effects. So this is right here, this is the blending mode. So from the term suggests, blending mode, it allows us to set the blending capability, or blending appearance of the layer. So basically, it's in some way it will add special effect to the layer. So right now it's on normal mode. So again, this will affect how the layer will blend to the rest of the layers in the image or in the projects. So if I'm going to select, let's say, dissolve, okay, notice that it gives us like a noisy or sandy edge of the layer. If we're going to select, let's say, darken, it will also darken the layers, so on and so forth. So basically, it gives us different blending modes, kumbaga. All right, and maybe I cannot explain each of these blending modes, when to use them, but let's just say that if we're going to select the drop down here in this area from darken to darker color, it will try to hide, it will hide the lighter pixels. So when you say lighter pixels, when you say any other colors aside from black, it will try to blend it together with the rest of the layers. So right now, you'll notice that all the blacks, let's say the word Negros Oriental State University, are visible. It only tries to blend the lighter colors, let's say the yellow, the red, so on. And then here, lighten to lighten color, this time around, it is the opposite. So it will try to blend in the darker color. So notice that from in lighten and lighten color, all the dark colors, let's say, ang Negros Oriental State University, the border is now trying to blend in together with the rest of the layers. So nabali siya. And then the overlay down to hard mix are just combination of both the light and dark, and then here are just random blending options. So basically it will be total up to you. You just have to play with it to see how the effect works. Let's set it back to normal. Next is fill. It sets the transparency of the color of the image or the object in the layer. Basically, it's the same thing with opacity. Basically, it will allow us to set the transparency of the layer. So let's take a look on how it works. So right now, we're currently on 100% opacity and on 100% fill. So if we're going to click on it, basically, we're just going to start to move this slider around from left to right, rather. It will also give us a different opacity or transparency level. So if we're going to move it to the left, then the lesser the transparency level, and then if we're going to the right, then the higher the transparency level. Basically, it's the same thing with fill. The more that we're going to move it to the left, it will give less transparency. If we're going to move it to the right, the higher the transparency. And then let's see, layer lock. All right, so if we're going to lock the layer, then the lock icon will display just like what we did a while ago. And then we have the layer options menu, where is that? Letter G, here. The layer options menu provides shortcut to the following options: new layer, duplicate layer, delete layer, layer properties, etc. Some of the options are also displayed at the bottom of the palette. So basically, this area right here will just give us some options, what to do with the layer. We can either add new color, copy CSS, copy SVG, so on and so forth. And actually, most of the things that you'll see here will also display if we're going to right click on the layer itself. So that's it. Next, H, add layer style. This allows you to add effects to the layer. The word FX, not word, but letter, this icon FX. Basically, we will be able to add additional effects to the layer itself. So let's say we're going to add effects to this logo, so we just have to press on it, and then we'll be given some options here like all blending options, but we have shortcuts for bevel, emboss, stroke, so on. So let's say we're going to select bevel and emboss, then additional window will display, and then here it is. Basically, the bevel and emboss will perhaps give us an illusion that the layer is 3D. Basically, it will allow us to add depth to our object. So for example, let's select bevel emboss. We can either increase the size, just like that. It looks like it has depth on it. It looks like a 3D. We can either soften the emboss, or maybe we can change the style of the emboss. All right, and so on and so forth. So that's just one. To activate bevel emboss, make sure that it is checked, and then we can also add stroke. All right, so on and so forth. We'll discuss more about layer style in just a moment. Next is letter I is add vector mask. Once added to the layer, it allows you to add transparent parts of the image using brush. Painting it with color changes the transparency of the painted parts. The darker the color used, the more transparent it gets. The lighter the color, the less transparent. More details about brushes and how to use it will be discussed later in our course. So basically, we by adding layer mask, we'll be able to select parts and set it to be transparent. So aside from setting the opacity, this one right here will set the transparency of the entire object or the entire layer. But what if ganara ko nga matabon ma-transparent ang some specific parts lang? So that's the time that we are going to use the layer mask. So by turning it on, if we're going to select it, notice that it will add like an artboard to the right of the layer. So right now it's currently color white. Now if we're going to paint it with black, now if we wanted to set the transparency of any parts of the object, we have to paint it with black. So we'll be using the brush tool by selecting this or by just pressing B on your keyboard. Alright, so for example, ganahan ko nga i-hide. So we're going to decrease the size of the brush. We're going to make it smaller, or the shortcut for adjusting the size of the brush is this. Can please take note at the keystroke indicated at the bottom. So the kaning icon, I'm not sure what it's called, the curly brackets, or basically the brackets. So the opening brackets will decrease the size, and then the closed brackets will increase the size. Alright, so let's zoom it in. But to zoom in, we just have to press Control and then plus. And then let's decrease the size of our brush. And then let's start painting the areas that we want to hide. So for example, we want to hide this blue areas. So we just have to press, make sure we selected black, and then we're going to start brushing these areas. Alright, so something like that. So it's not going to be perfect, of course. This will require more practice on how we're going to. So basically what it does is this area will now be transparent. Alright, how to prove that it's transparent? Let's try to move it around. Here, kabantay mo, at this time makita na ang building sa likod. Alright, so basically that's how it works. So let's try, para mas maklaro na lang, let me try to increase the brush size, and then let's just, okay, something like that. So basically if we paint it with darker color, then the more transparent it gets. But if we're going to paint it with lighter color, then the less transparent, or basically mawala ang yung transparency. If we're going to paint it with white, basically it's reset back to the original form or original transparency. So this is important, especially when removing backgrounds, something like that. Or okay, more about layer masking will be discussed in our future lesson. Layer masking is one of the most important things to learn in Adobe Photoshop for creating compositions. Next is we have create new fill or adjustment layer. So provides image or color adjustments, options such as brightness, color filter, contrast, etc. Once added, the adjustment will affect only to the layers below it. So basically the adjustment layer, which is this one, will allow us to further add adjustments or style in our layer. So basically if we're going to increase the brightness, decrease or increase the contrast, so on and so forth, this is your guy. However, this is what's gonna happen. So for example, okay, for the meantime, let me delete the layer mask. All right, so for example, if we want to change the brightness of the layers, then we're going to use this adjustment layer, and then let's say it will give us many options. Let's select brightness and contrast. So what it does is it will allow us to basically adjust the brightness by using the slider, and then we can also adjust the contrast. All right, so notice that once we clicked on it, an additional layer will display. So this is the adjustment layer. So again, let me delete that, and let's try again. So again, if we're going to select the adjustment layer and then add the brightness contrast adjustment layer, it will automatically create an additional adjustment layer right here, and then the property will pop up. So normally the property will display right away. However, if dili siya mo display, then you have to add it. So by selecting Windows and make sure that the properties is checked. Okay, just in case dili siya mo display. Alright, so again, we can change the brightness the layers. However, it will affect all the layers below the adjustment layer by default. So everything that is below, not just the layer, so including the building at the background, the blue color background, it will also be, basically it will change everything below this adjustment layer. Let's take a look at the word Bais campus. The Bais campus, if we're going to check it on the layer palette, it is placed above the adjustment layer. So therefore, dili siya ma-appel sa adjustment layer. So for example, if we're going to increase the brightness, the Bais campus still the same brightness. If we're going to decrease the brightness, dili maapektahan ang Bais campus. It's because it's above the adjustment layer. To fix that, we just have to move the adjustment layer to the top para maapektahan ang Bais campus. Right? So again, by default, adjustment layer will only affect the areas or the layers below it. Now, what if ganahan ra ko nga ma-change ang brightness only to the logo? Ganahan ko nga kanilang nga particular nga layer ang mausob. Then we're going to add a clip mask, or we're going to clip the mask. Meaning we're just going to set it to this layer only by clicking this. I-click na to na, then it will give us an arrow pointing to the layer. That means all of the effects will only take effect to this layer right here. For example, we can only change the brightness of that particular color. Right? So that is if you want to just add it to the next to one particular layer only. Okay, so let me erase this and let's proceed. Delete layer. Let's proceed. Okay, next is we have create new group. Allows you to group multiple layers for easy management. This is particularly helpful when doing a project with lots of layers. To group the layers, simply add a new group and then double click on the group name to rename, then drag the layers to layers that you want to include to the group. So basically, if we are doing compositions, big composition, most of the time is daghan na kayong layer nga ma-add. So it would be practical if we're going to group some of the layers all together. Right? What happens is if we can either manage them all together at once, we can move them together all at once, and it just makes the layer presentation much cleaner. Alright, so here's an example of a group layer. So right now it says group 1. If I'm going to click on it, then it will collapse. It will display all the layers that I've hidden or that I have grouped. Alright, so let me check on that. So let's check unsa lang gani in layer 9. Let's use the move tool. Here, this is layer 9. And then layer 6, this one right here. So since these layers are similar to each other, then I grouped it. Alright, so how did I do it? So by using this. So for the meantime, let me ungroup them together. Alright, so right now they are no longer grouped, but to group them, you can either just click on the group icon, and then the group icon will display, and all you need to do is just highlight the layers you want to group. So how to highlight? Press the first layer, press the shift on your keyboard, and then select or click on the last layer that you want to add. So this will highlight the entire layers, and then just click and drag, move it to the layer icon, or to the group. Notice that the layers move a little bit to the right, meaning they're already grouped. So if we're going to click on it, they will collapse and then display it again. That's one way to do it. Another way is we're going to delete this group for now. Another way is to highlight the the layers first, and then click the group icon, and then right now they are automatically grouped. You can rename the group by double clicking on the text, and then let's say this is a group. All right, okay. It will just make the presentation, or it will just make the layers look cleaner. So since they're already grouped, this time around I can move them together. All right, or I can either add adjustment layers to them all together, and it will affect the entire groups, just like that. Okay. All right, so let me just delete this and let's proceed. What else? Create new group. Allows you to group multiple layers. I'm sorry. Create new layer. This one right here. Create new layer. This is a shortcut to add new layer. Another way on adding a new layer is to go to layer tab in the menu bar, select new, then layer. Or just simply type Control Shift N on your keyboard, type the layer name, and then click OK. So remember that it is advised that every objects, every elements that we're going to add to our composition must be separated by its own layer. So that's why we have to create new layers. So we're going to do that again. You just have to press this. This is the new layer icon. Or, okay, let me just move the property palette here. Or you can go to layer at the top and then new and then layer. Or you can press Control Shift N and then enter the layer name and then OK. Alright, next is the delete layer. Allows you to remove the selected layer. So if there are any layers that you don't want to be around anymore, you just have to delete it. For example, how to do so? Just highlight the layer you want to delete and then click the trash icon or right click, delete layer, or simply just tap on the delete button of your keyboard. That's it. Alright, so that will be all of the parts of the layer palette. This time around, we're going to discuss how exactly does layers work. Okay, so when working on a project that involves a lot of objects, it's always best to separate each object in a layer as much as possible. This provides easier manipulation on each object, thus making photo editing much easier. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the layer arrangement. So how exactly does the layer works when it comes to arranging the objects that we'll see on our artworks? So to set which layer should be displayed in the front or back, proper arrangement of layers must be observed. Layers in the palette are displayed vertically. The layers that are located at the top are also located in front of the picture. The layers that are located at the bottom are also located at the back of the picture. To rearrange, simply drag the selected layer over or below the other layers. So I'm not sure if that makes sense, but let's just say that in our layer palette, the layers are displayed vertically, right? So kinsa tong nasa ibabaw will also display in front of the image of the picture, and then the layers that are located at the bottom will also display at the back. So let's take a look at this example. So right now, the yellow layer is arranged at the top of the layer palette. Therefore, it is also displayed in front. The blue is arranged in the middle of the palette. Therefore, it is also located in the middle. And then the red layer is located at the bottom of the color layer palette. Therefore, it is also located at the back of the picture. So basically, that's it. Depending on how you're going to arrange the layers in your palette, it will also affect how it's gonna look like in front in the actual picture. So let's try to do that. So let's say let's move it right here. Okay, for example, we want the logo to be displayed at the bottom, or at the back rather, of this building. So where's the building layer? Here it is. So all we need to do is just drag and move it at the bottom of the building layer, and you will see that the picture or the logo is now at the back of the building. All right, so basically that's it. We just have to arrange it. If you're going to move the layer to the front, then you just have to move the layer at the front, or above rather, at the top, and that's it. That is layer arrangement. All right, next is duplicate layers. You can easily create two or more similar objects without doing it individually by duplicating it. To do so, simply right-click on the layer you want to duplicate, then click Duplicate Layer, type the new layer name, then click OK, or simply type Ctrl J on your keyboard. So for example, we want to add another layer that looks just like this. We want to duplicate the logo. So how are we going to do that? You just have to right click and then duplicate layer, and then type in the duplicate name, the layer name, and then it is now 2 layers. Let's move the other one, and here it is. So basically, this will allow us not to create the same layers again. We just have to copy and paste it, something like that, or duplicate it. So let's delete that. Another way is to just using your keyboard, Control J. So Control J. All right. So there are two layers now. The same thing. Next is hide or unhide layer. So we've already discussed that. Basically, if there are some layers that you want to see, then just have to click hide the eye icon. This one right here. Layer styles. You can add styles to the object inside a layer. To do so, right click on the layer, then select blending options, or kani. So again, this time around, let's talk about layer styles. We'll be able to add styles to our layers if we want to. So by doing so, right click and then blending option, or select the FX or the blending layer style button at the bottom, and then select which option right here, or just go to blending options. Right, let's move it here so we can see it properly. And this is the layer style. So we have different layer styles here, and let's talk about them individually. Bevel and emboss. Apply bevel and emboss effect. The light and shadow give the object a 3D effect. So I've already shown it to you a while ago. So if we're going to select bevel and emboss, you just have to make sure that the checkbox is checked, and then click on it, and it will give us further control on how we're going to customize the bevel and emboss. So the first one is style. So it will give us different style. Which type of emboss do we want to add to our design or to our layer? So we have outer bevel, and then we have inner bevel. All right, so I'm not sure if that's visible, so let's increase the size. Okay, and then we have emboss, we have pillow emboss, so let's zoom it in a little bit so we can see it clear. And then we have stroke emboss. I'm not sure if that's visible, so let's stick it to the inner emboss. And then the technique, smoothness, basically it gives us different additional styles to it. So let's set it to smooth. And then the depth will allow us to, I cannot really explain how that, I cannot characterize or I cannot describe it, but let's just take a look on how it works. And then the direction is up and down. All right. So maybe I don't have the time to explain each of these options individually, but you just have to play with it. And we have the size, soften options, and then the angle. All right, basically it will just display the angle and how the light reflects to the design to simulate the bevel and emboss. And then we have here different glass contours, and then we have blending mode, and then the opacity for the highlights and shadows. All right, so I'm not going to you just have to try it yourself, to play with it and to get the desired appearance that you want. And then just tap on the checkbox again to disable it. Then next is we have stroke. Basically the stroke will give us margin or border to our layers. You just have to select the size, move it around to whichever size of stroke you want. And then we can change the color. All right, and then we can change the fill type either to gradient or maybe pattern. You can select different patterns here, so like trees, so on and so forth. Right, so again, you just have to play with the controls. And then we have inner shadow. From the term suggest shadow, it will give us a simulation of a real life shadow. So let's, okay, for example, let's add, right now it's inner shadow, meaning we can add shadows inside our object. So let's increase the opacity, the transparency, let's increase the size, and let's set the distance, let's set the angle, and then let's set the blending mode. All right, so basically these are just some controls on how you can add shadows inside your object. And then we have inner glow. Basically that's the same thing. Let's set it to normal so we can see it. Let's give it like yellow glow, and then let's increase the size. I'm not sure that's visible, so let's change that to, let's say, red na lang. And then let's set the opacity to higher, and then let's increase the size. Right, so that's glow, but inside the object. Then we have satin, right? And then we have color overlay. Now the color overlay will just change, or will just replace the color of the entire layer easily. So for example, we want this to be like all, we'll replace the entire color with, let's say, yellow, then that's it. Basically, if you want to replace, quickly, or if you want to replace the color of the layer quickly, then you just have to add color overlay. The gradient overlay is the same thing, but this time around we'll be able to change it with gradient. When say gradient, combination of multiple colors. So you can either select the preset, or if you want to change it, if you want to if the color that you want isn't saved in the preset, so you can just change it yourself. So let's just select one, for example that, and then click on the gradient box, and then this gradient editor will display. Now notice on this area right here, basically these are the colors that you can change. So right now there are only two colors. So for example, let's change this color right here with, let's say, yellow, or let's say blue, light blue. Then click on this area, and then click on the color, and then change it to, let's say, yellow. Press OK. And then this one right here, I'm sorry, let's set to blue. That's what I said. And then this one right here, let's change it to dark, like say darker shade of blue. That's it. All right. So how to add, maybe what if you're going to add more colors? Then all you need to do is just click any of these area. Click rin bisag asang area. For example, we want to add a color in the middle, so just click here and then click the color, and let's replace it with, let's say, replace it with this color right here, and then let's add another color, and let's change it to, let's say, kanaba. And then here let's add another color, let's say red. Okay, that's just an example. Press OK. And you can also change how its appearance. So right now it's linear, meaning the color are blending horizontal, or like a line. You can change the angle, or you can also change it to radial, and then angle, and then reflected, and then diamond. Okay, so basically this is really important when you're just trying to create combination of multiple colors. So let's try that. Let's try to create the gold kono. I'm not sure, I'm not really good in combining colors, but I often use Adobe colors.adobe.com. But let's try. So we'll try to create gold. So we'll make it look like this, and then let's change it to lighter gold. Okay, so I think that's close enough. Alright, I think that's close enough. Yeah, anyway, there are tons of ways you can change the color according to what you want. So that's gradient overlay. Next is we have pattern overlay. Basically, that's the same thing, but this time it will allow us to change it to pattern. Now, right now there are only a few patterns here, but you can download more. All you need to do is just download it to the internet and then click on this gear icon and then import patterns. And then select the pattern that you've downloaded. And then we have outer glow. So it's the same thing with the inner glow, but this time the glow will be saved outside, will be displayed outside. So just like that. Increase opacity. Let's change it to, let's say, yellow. Alright. And then drop shadow. Well, basically, we're just going to add shadows, but this time outside the object. So let's put it in this angle right here. Let's increase the size, let's increase the distance, and let's increase opacity. Okay, so let's see, this is without drop shadow, this is with drop shadow. Alright, so that is blending options or layer styles, kumbaga. So basically, once you've clicked OK, you will see that the effects that you've added here, and right now it shows that I've only added a drop shadow. Alright, so let's have a practice activity. We are going to create this. Alright, so it's like a chocolate bar. And then here are some of the styles that I used, layer styles. And then basically these are the instruction on how we're going to do it. So instruction, create new project. Alright, and then use the rectangular marquee. Alright, so we'll just go, here are the step-by-step procedure, but right now, let me just eyeball it for you. So let's create a new project. So just press on the file, new, and then let's set it to 5 by 5 inches, 72 RGB, and that's it. Let's click create. Let's zoom it in a little. And then let's start. Alright, so for us to create the chocolate bars, the chocolate bars, we're going to use this rectangle tool, and then we're going to create new layer, select the rectangle tool, and then click and drag it around. Now, using the rectangular tool, we cannot create a perfect square. Now, how we're going to create a perfect square? Make sure that you press shift. Okay, by selecting shift, notice that it will keep the same proportion. So again, for you to be able to create a perfect square, make sure you selected shift. You press shift while you're dragging. Release to create the rectangle. Now, the property will display. This time, it gives us an option which color are we going to add. So right now, it's set the fill to white. Let's change it to this 603913. So how we're going to select that, we can either select the color palettes here, or we can select this, and this will give us to select. This will give us this option, and then all we need to do is just type in 603913 in the text. This one right here, so 603913. So here, this is a dark brown color. Then click OK, and then let's hide the property. Okay, so we're just going to create 8 more of these. So we can either just keep on doing it the same way that we did, or we can duplicate the layer. So right click, duplicate the layer, press OK, and then let's move it. Alright, okay, before we proceed, let me just delete it. I just realized that there is a stroke, so we're going to remove the stroke. We just have to click on the area and then click the property again, and then for the stroke, we want to remove the stroke. So how are we going to do that? We're just going to click this. That's it. All right, this means no color, meaning there will be no stroke on our chocolate bar. All right, so let's do it again. Let's duplicate. duplicate here. Then press OK. And then let's use the move tool and then just click it and paste it to the middle. Move it to the middle. Alright. And then duplicate it again. And then move it here. Alright. So there are now 3 of them. So this time around, we can duplicate these 3 all together. All you need to do is highlight it out. So using Shift. And then duplicate again. And alright. And then let's do it again, just one more. Okay. Alright, so we have 9 chocolate bars. This time around, we're going to add a text to it. Okay, next is we're going to add text. So but before we do so, let's group this, because for us to be able to adjust it or maybe modify it much easier, let's make sure that all of these similar layers are grouped. How are we going to do that? Let's highlight them all together and then click on the group icon, and then let's change it. Double click on that and let's say choco bars. Right, so this time let's create new folder again, a new layer again, and we're going to add text. Now to add a text, here this is the text tool, or just simply type in T on your keyboard. Okay, and then to add a text, just click wherever you want to add a text. For example, here, let's add it to the center. Let's say C. Alright, so it's not really center, so let's use the move tool and move it at the center approximately. Okay, now let's type in T again so we can change. Notice that when we click T, it gives us the option for the font face, the font style, and the font size, and so on. So we just have to highlight it, and then let's change it to, let's say, Cooper Black. This one. And then let's change the color. Just press this. Let's change it to any dark color, dark brown. So that. Okay, and then let's move it to the center again. Okay, all right, so we can, to add more letters, we can just keep on doing just the same thing that we did, or we can duplicate it. Control J, move it here, and then Control J again, so we can move it here. All right, and then let's highlight them all together. Control J, or duplicate and move it here. Let's do that one more time, and let's add it here. Okay, and this time let's go ahead and edit. So just type in T again, select T, and then let's replace it with H, and then type in T again, let's replace it with O, and then okay, that's it, and then let's replace it with O, choco L, and then E, and then T, E. Okay, so we have chocolate. All right, what's next? Let's go to our choco bars and let's follow this instruction right here. So first, these are the layer styles that we're going to add: bevel and emboss. So let's do just that. All right, before we proceed, let's group this again, and then let's call it choco text. So let's start adding layer style to our choco bars. So let's press the FX and then blending options. And then first is we're going to add bevel and emboss. Okay, so the style is inner bevel. So click on it. Let's change it to inner bevel. And then the depth is 388%. So, but anyway, I guess this will not really apply here. So we're just going to eyeball it. Alright, what else? Let's set the size to 13, soften, and an angle is 54 degree. Okay, here's the angle. Let's type in 54 degree, and then glass contour is ring. The glass contour is this. The ring is, if you're not so sure which one, then you just have to ring this one. Okay, let's increase the opacity. All right, what else? Texture. All right, so let's type in the texture. However, I don't necessarily have this particular texture, which is wax crayon on charcoal paper. I haven't downloaded it. So let's just select any other texture that we have. Or actually, we're just going to skip the texture because it will not look good because I don't have all the textures available. And then let's proceed to drop shadow. Let's add drop shadow. And we're just going to eyeball it. Let's decrease the size. Let's decrease the distance. Alright, and then let's set, let's increase the spread a little bit. Okay. Alright, that's it. Next is we'll add layer style to the text. So press OK to apply it, and this time let's go ahead and select the Choco text. Same thing, blending mode. And bevel and emboss, we're going to select pillow emboss. So bevel and emboss, and then let's select pillow emboss. Okay, and then technique is smooth, of course, and then the depth is just gamay lang atong depth. And direction is up. Okay, size is 10 pixels. Let's decrease it a little bit, and then let's just play on the options. And then we're going to use, let's change this, instead of ring, let's change it to something else. Alright, and what else? Color overlay. Okay, we've already done that. And then that's it. Okay, so we've just created a very simple but very easy chocolate bars. Although this is not really perfect, there's more ways. If you really wanted to make it realistic, there are some other ways that we're going to add to it. But of course, just for the sake of this discussion, since we're just trying to learn layer styles, this would be enough. All right. So that is layers, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see if, okay. The next next topic would be adjustment layer, and that will be discussed in our next lesson. Right? But of course, we're not gonna end our lesson by just learning how to create chocolate bar. Let's try to apply our knowledge with any other application or any other design. So let me open up a project. Let me open up a photo, this one right here. And here it is. This is a US F-35 fighter jet. And let's say we want to add an afterburner. When we say afterburner, the fire that escapes from the jet's exhaust, this area right here, we're going to add that because this picture doesn't have one. So let's simulate, let's try to make it look like the fighter jet is trying to accelerate. So we're going to create an afterburner, or the fire that came out from at the bottom or at the exhaust of the fighter jet. So still, we'll be using the basic tools here, and then we're going to apply layer styles so that, and then blending modes basically, so that it will be able to make it look like an actual an actual fire or afterburner. So let's start with creating new layer, and then using the pen tool. All right, pen tool is also one of the one of the most important tools that every designer should practice, so that we'll be able to create, you know, good graphic design composition. So again, using the pen tool, this one right here, we're going to create the afterburner. We're going to draw it. So learning pen tool may take a little while, but this is just some quick tips. So let's start by clicking just one click. This is our anchor, our first anchor point, and then we're going to create a curve line here. So how are we going to do so? Let's proceed to the end part of our pinakatumoy sa atong afterburner. Let's say somewhere right here. Click and drag it. I'm not sure if you see it, so let me zoom it in back end. So again, let's put it right here. Click and hold. Click, hold, and drag. So I'm not sure if you see it, but you'll notice that there is a curved line that is going on. So I'm not letting go of my keyboard, my mouse yet. I'm still clicking and holding it while dragging. Okay, so you'll notice that there is a curve that is going on. So we want that, of course. Next is we're going to click back in here. However, here's what's gonna happen. Muhiwi siya. All right. So Control Z. First, we need to cut this extension. So are we going to cut this extension? Go to the middle. Kaning na ay dot. And then press Alt on your keyboard. Press Alt and then tap on that point. This will cut the extension. Alright, so Control Z, Alt on your keyboard, and then click on the point. So once it's cut, we'll be able to create a sharp edge. And then we're just going to do just the same thing that we did. Click and drag, click and hold, and then drag. And then again, we're going to cut the extension or the point. And then let's combine them by clicking on our very first anchor point. And then click, drag, and hold. Alright. So I guess that's it. Since our line is now meeting together, nagkaabot naman sila, this time we'll convert this this lines into selection. How are we going to do so? Right click and then make selection. And then this dialog will display. Make sure the feather radius is 0 and then press OK. Now we have a selection. So what exactly is a selection? Katong same nga tong kani. This was discussed in our previous meeting. And then this time around, we are going to add the fire. How we're going to do so? Let's make use of the gradient tool, this one right here. Okay, this is gradient tool, and we want to change our color palette. So right now it is selected to orange, and this is exactly what we want. We want the orange kind, the color of fire. Maybe make it a little darker. Okay, just like that, and press OK. And then this time, make sure to select the transparent layer here. So after you selected the appropriate color, press in this area, and then make sure to select the second one. This is called foreground to transparent, because we want it to be in this area would be the orange red part, and then this right here will be transparent. So we want that. Make sure to select the foreground to transparent, press OK, and then using the gradient tool, click and drag from the tip of the exhaust. Click and drag, hold it up until the very end of our selection, and then release. We'll get this. So notice that this area right here is solid orange, and this one right here is transparent. So that is gradient tool. Let's zoom out a little. All right, and then let's control. We'll have to remove the selection by pressing Control D. All right, let me Control Z, because this is just too kuanda siya kaayo, pula siya kaayo. Let's make it a little orange, a little more orange. Kana. And then let's try again. Click, drag, and hold. All right, I think that's better. Okay, this time around we're going to make it blur, because it looks too flat and it doesn't look realistic. So next thing, we're going to make it blur. To do so, select filter and then blur and then Gaussian blur. All right, So just okay, let's zoom it out so we can see where it is. Okay, here it is. Let's move it to the center so we can see it. All right, so using the slider, just let's make it like, right, let's move it to 10 pixels. All right, that's too much. Let's say 6. All right, you just have to play with the slider to set on your own which one for you is will make the design look better. So right now this one kind of look nice, so that's it. Let's press OK. All right, so it's starting to make it look like realistic image now, but of course it's still not realistic at all. We're going to change the blend mode here on our layer. So remember, this is the blend mode. Click on that and let's select screen. Okay, let's select screen, and that's it. So we already have the exhaust and it's starting to look even more realistic. This time around, we're going to add highlight. We know na kung naay mga fire, mas hayag jud ang pinakatumoy. So we want to do that. This time around, we're going to create new layer again. And we will use brush. And then using our brush, let's make it bigger. So right click and then let's increase the size. All right, let's just use the keyboard shortcut. Oops, sorry. And then let's set this hardness to 0. Let's increase the size using the keyboard. All right, here. And then let's replace it with, let's try kanang masayag ko jud. So that almost white. And then let's press it right here. Okay, all right, that's better. And then let's change the blend mode to this one right here, color. All right, let me check if which one's better. Hold on. I change the color to, I guess that's it, color Dodge, just like that. And then we can move it a little bit to the end. All right, I think we'll have to change it to add. Right. How about if we'll change the color to darker lang gyapon nga orange? Let's space it. All right, that's better. That's a lot better. Okay, so that's it. So basically, we're able to create a faked afterburn of our F-35 jet, and it, of course, this is still not complete, but just for the sake of today's lesson, this is what we come up. But to make it more realistic, there are tons of more things that we can add to make it even more realistic. But for now, based on the learnings that we've got today, this is pretty much okay. All right, so that will be all for today. On our next meeting, we're going to discuss adjustment layer. This will help us create even more practical and even more beautiful composition in graphic design. So that will be for our next meeting. That will be in our next that will be next week, so stand by for that. And for the meantime, once I uploaded this video online, please watch it, and then I'm going to send the assessment and I'm going to provide you with the assignment later on. So that will be all for today. Thank you so much for making this far in the video, and as always, please take care. God bless everyone.